Welcome back, BraveCo men, to the BraveCo podcast. This week, I have, one of my favorite people in the world, my son, Elijah. Elijah, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What were you doing right before this?
Working.
Doing what?
The guys are getting back from a job, so just messing around with them.
Running chainsaw?
Yeah, they're running chainsaw, cutting trees, doing a bunch of burn piles out in Red Bluff. So,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it was fun.
Well, when you were young, I used to take you out in the woods all the time because I was fighting fire, and I'd let you run the chainsaw when you were little. I'd help you.
Yeah.
And we'd burn piles and spread fire around. And it's so cool because now I get to watch you do that.
Yep.
On your own. So Elijah is the director of Bethel Global Response, as well as you own your own company, Cannon Tree Service.
Let's go, boy.
Yeah. So if you're in Redding and you need some tree work done, Elijah's your man.
Yeah, that's right. Call for a free estimate.
You're running a deal or anything like that?
No deal.
No deals.
No deal. Yeah. You get what you pay for. That's the deal.
Yeah, you can have it one of three ways. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Fast and what is it? Cheap and
cheap and fast.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
And me neither. Anyways, it's just so cool to watch who you've grown up to be throughout all the years of fathering you. Like when you were young, I'm so proud of you now because when you were young, you used to have all these ideas about what you wanted to do. Like one time I remember, it was like 7 a.m. I was doing some laundry, which I don't typically do the laundry, but I was single dadding it.
Yeah.
And you were probably 9 years old. And so I was down there switching the laundry and you came down and you're all serious. You said, Dad, I need an agent. I was like, oh my God, what? You need what? You said, I need an agent. I said, what do you mean you need an agent? He said, I want to be an actor. I need an agent. And I was like,
I missed that calling.
Yeah. I remember telling you like, oh son, can we talk about this later? It was literally 7 a.m.
You're like, bro, I can barely make peanut butter jelly sandwiches. I ain't getting you a freaking agent.
No. And then I remember you coming down saying that you wanted to start a business.
Yeah.
I want to start a business, a go-kart business. And I was like, oh man. Okay, why do you want to start a go-kart business? Well, Kyle was our roommate and he was older. Kyle said that like starting a go-kart business would be easy and I could make a bunch of money. And I said, you go tell Kyle that if it's so easy, why doesn't he start it with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I squashed a whole bunch of your dreams.
That's all right. Once I got out of the house, it was game on.
Before you got out of the house, it's so fun to see what your kids become, right? As a dad, like before you got out of the house, we had, you'd got your driver's license and we'd helped you get a car. What was it? The Montero?
Dude.
Mitsubishi Montero?
Grandma passed away.
Yeah.
And I got grandma's car.
Yeah. Which was a blessing.
It was a $900 Kelly Blue Book blessing.
Yeah. It was cool, but Papa poured a bunch of money into it.
He
right?
did. Yeah. Because the value of the car was so low, he's like, let me make it up with some parts on the car, which was
tires,
awesome.
A winch.
Yeah. We put some tires on, put a winch, light bar, stereo system. Yeah. It was good. Like good bonding time with Papa. Got to work on a car. Yeah. It was fun.
And then next thing we know, like, bam.
Selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where, I mean, I wanted all sorts of things, right? So Facebook Marketplace it's my best friend. But back then it was like, okay, well, how can I make some money? Like
you're always thinking about how to make money.
Was on my mind. How could I flip this and get something different? And so, yeah. So basically I had this Mitsubishi Montero. We put some money into it, whatever, and sold it for, I think like $3,500, $4,500. Yeah. And everyone in the family is like,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? You're crazy. Don't do this. And then on,
because one thing that you have to know about Elijah is like, he's kind of impulsive. Yeah. So, you know, we were just like, he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just buying and selling. And like, you're going to buy something that you can't afford to fix because you didn't have any money.
Right.
But so anyways,
Yeah. So what I would do is I would scour the internet hours. I mean, hours and hours and hours. It didn't matter. Like,
yeah.
I would spend so much time just scouring the internet, looking for deals, looking for cars. I'd message 1,000 guys and say, hey, can I buy your car for a quarter of what you're listing it for? And out of the 1,000, you'd get one guy who would be
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure. So, I mean, I ended up flipping a ridiculous amount of cars in
Yeah,
high
you
school.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bought and sold, I don't know, probably 10 cars.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Easy.
just while you're in high school.
Yeah. Just when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at first we were like, God, what is he doing? What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
Like there's some kind of car addiction. But then you start to make money
Yeah.
and drive all these cool cars. And then like eventually kind of the family got together without you and was just like, just don't ask him about it anymore. Because
No.
what you do is you'd buy a car and you'd be like, this is the best car. This is my favorite car. I'm keeping this car. And then like a week later it'd be gone. Right?
Dude, it's hard when I'm such a this is what we could do, like such a dreamer
Yeah.
and a doer at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's just a bad combo because it's like, I mean, yesterday I went and bought a dirt bike out of the blue and was like, I already have one, but this is a deal. I have to drive 2 hours to go pick this thing up. Poor Allie's like,
Uh-huh.
all right, like whatever.
You're
So
always in it to win it for the deals.
yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah,
Well, it's fun. I'm gonna. I just wanted people to get to kind of know you a little bit and your personality
yeah,
a
definitely.
bit. But you're 24. You're married. You run your own business. You run BGR,
Yep.
and you're just such a great man.
Mhm.
And you've been through a lot in life. You've been through, your parents going through a divorce, which is no secret. I've talked about it a lot on here. And you work for, the church that your grandpa runs and your dad works at and your whole family really almost.
Yep.
And you've had such a unique life, I thought it would be fun to bring you on here and just ask you some questions about life. There's some younger guys that listen to the podcast. It'd be cool.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then some older guys that'd just be curious about your story. But
Definitely.
what do you feel like, is like the biggest thing that shaped who you are today that like came out of your past? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, definitely from my past, obviously with you guys going through the divorce, and then I'd say really from the divorce, life has not been that easy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but life after that was not easy. And so, with divorced parents, naturally, you're doing the switch and, you're doing weekly back and forth. And so just in that, you instantly kind of have to grow up a little bit faster. That 11-year-old boy now is not 11 years old anymore, right? Because he's having to go deal with stuff at his mom's house or, have to go deal with stuff at his dad's house or whatever. So instantly you kind of have to grow up a little bit. But I would say the biggest thing that shaped me into who I am now is probably, making mistakes and then learning how to clean them up and take ownership for that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, really what that would look like is because I was hurting, because I was young, going through a crazy time, I obviously would make a ton of mistakes. And with you, I didn't have an option to not clean up my mistake.
Yeah.
Like there was, when I went and cussed out my whole class, I didn't have an option to not clean up my mess, And so from that, it kind of was like, okay, if you make a mistake, this is what that looks like. We don't, you're not going to get a free ride because of whatever, and
because
so
of who you are, who your dad is.
Right, because of who you are, who your dad is, even in high school, go have sex with a girl and it was like, all right, you made this choice. Go get in your car. You're going to go say sorry to her parents, So it's like, there was no excuse for who my parents were or for my actions or anything like that. And so, now as an adult, making decisions now, I know what the cost is, right? I know what's going to happen. I know what it looks like now to go through something hard and come out of it. I know what it looks like now to make a mess and have to buckle up and look that guy in the mirror and be like, all right, boy, you got to go clean this up. Like,
Yeah.
this is a mess that no one else created but you,
Yeah.
you know, and there's, you know, you can have all the excuses you want, but that doesn't really matter because there's a mess that you made. And so I think that's definitely probably one of the biggest things that, at least right now, is kind of shaped who I am, is going through those hard times, but then not being a victim to those hard times, but taking ownership over that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if we could all learn that lesson, right?
Yeah.
Like, lay in the bed that you make, clean up the mess that you make.
Yeah.
Be responsible, take ownership for your actions. Like, I mean, that's a great lesson to learn from growing up.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
What do you feel like you're carrying on from like Papa's legacy or whatever? Do you ever think about that? Like, what's the piece that you feel like you're carrying?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I think, what am I carrying for Papa's legacy? I mean, honestly, I think I do think about it a lot. I think more than me thinking about it, I think I just wake up and I'm like, okay, I just need to do the best that I can for today, because for myself, it would be really easy for me to think about, this is what Papa's done. This is what Dad is doing.
Like, measure yourself against that?
Yeah. And then fall in the, well, I'm not doing enough. Right. And so, you know, especially in the environment that we're in, we get a lot of prophetic words, right? And so it's very normal for someone to walk up, and everyone I think would agree with this, is it's very normal for someone to walk into a room with whatever last name you have, and be like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is your calling. You know, this is what you're called to do.
Yeah.
And if I don't actually know who I am and know who God calls me to be, I could easily fall into what someone else thinks I should be doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think for the question that you asked, I think, it really takes me knowing who I am in the Lord, and also knowing, okay, what I'm called to do may be parts of what Papa are or does, but it also has the permission to look a little bit different.
Yeah. That's a battle, isn't it?
Dude. Yeah, you want to get put through the grinder, show up at 10:30 a.m. on a Sunday service and stay after church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the expectations that people have for you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember being probably 20, 21. You're 24 now.
Yeah.
Being 20 or 21. And Papa had been at the church here at Bethel for probably 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So he was starting to get some like notoriety, and I was used to Weaverville Church, so town of 3,000, church of 250, like everybody knows everybody. And so, and everyone's really genuine,
Right.
And then when I came to Bethel, I remember like, it felt like they would meet me and I would say like, hey, I'm Jason. They'd be like, oh, hey, I'm Joe, it's good to meet you. And then they'd be like, wait, you're Chris's son. And I remember at first I'd be like, yeah. And then they would treat me different from that moment. Right.
Yeah.
And for like a whole year, I got really resentful because I felt like people were being fake.
Yeah.
Or the pressure, right? Like now I have all this pressure on me to perform, to be somebody that maybe I don't want to be in the moment. And I got really frustrated and really resentful with that. And then somewhere along the line, I had to reconcile, like, these people aren't being fake. Like, Papa has really blessed them and they're excited. Like they feel blessed to know me, and also too, like, that is so hard to not take on who we think other people want us to be.
Right. And I feel like the biggest thing that, I think you definitely have felt this, but I feel like being a third generation PK kid is...
You got more pressure?
Well, yeah. But more than that is everyone, and maybe I shouldn't put this on everyone, but this is how I feel, which could not be right. But everyone knows you. Everyone knows because of the books, because of the preachings, because of the teachings.
They think they know you.
Everyone thinks that they know what your life looks like.
Yeah.
And so, you could easily, and I don't share, there's a lot of stuff on my story that is not shared, right? We just, there's no, Yeah, that
We
we're
don't
just
disclose everything.
yeah, we're not disclosing everything.
Like your rash.
Yeah, like my rash, bro. I got a gnarly rash.
No.
No, but there's just stuff that, that's happened in the past where, I've had to go through a lot, but people don't
Yeah.
necessarily know that. And so I think that's the hardest thing is it's not always chalked up, to be
Well, we all
what you
want an
think it is.
opportunity to be known for who we really are, right?
Right.
That's what feels genuine to us.
Yeah.
And if people love, like I always say this, like, don't love the future version of me. Don't
Yeah.
love what you think that I am. Like, love who I am today.
Yeah.
And, but sometimes I don't love who I am today.
Yeah.
That's the flip side, right? Like,
Yeah, that's tricky.
sometimes I want to be somebody more than who I really am in the moment. And that takes some reconciling.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that takes a lot. I mean, and when you have nothing to do, and I think that's even something that I struggle with now is if the day isn't full with stuff to do, or, you know, if it's a Saturday and I'm not working, or if it's, a Sunday and I'm not doing something, that's where stuff gets hard.
Cause you feel what?
I think just because I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I think I find my purpose in working. Like my problem is different. Like some people have problems going to work. My problem is
Not working too much.
not working too much because it's easy for me to put in work. It's easy for me to work, at 100% for a long time. It's hard for me to want to sit down and just sit down,
Why? What happens when you sit down?
Dude, it's just, you're fighting the battle in your head. I think I think what happens, and realistically, because there's definitely guys that are feeling this, is, for me, it's I want to go to work. I find importance from work. I find value in work. And it's easy for me to go to work. It's really hard for me to come home, it's really hard for me to be home when I haven't worked.
Yeah.
And so that's a constant battle that I have to fight in my head daily. And this is just real is, I have to fight the self-talk of, bro, you haven't done anything today, like you're in your PJs and it's 9:30, like there's trees to be cut. There's stuff to be
you could
done.
Be making money. You could be
hustling. You could be making money. Yeah, that's a real thing, and actually there's a lot of rest in just, sitting and being peaceful with yourself. But, when you don't actually sit down and take that
when you're
time,
24 and strong,
dude, and you just want to go, it's hard to slow that train down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can understand that.
Yeah.
I think on some level, the majority of men struggle with that, right? You feel so much pressure to produce and so much pressure to make sure that the bills are paid. And then we also have this thing about opportunity, right? Like there's a chance to grow and expand and be an entrepreneur. And so there's that piece to it. And then you just have the own like self-value piece that says like, I feel better about myself when I'm working,
right?
When I accomplish something. And when I don't accomplish something, it's hard to feel good about myself that day, which is real. And we have to pull our self-worth away from how hard we work or what we accomplish, right?
Yeah.
And slowly separate those two things. I also think for a lot of guys, it's this, like, I feel really successful at work. I don't feel really successful at home.
100%. And that's, I think with that comment, you're hitting the nail on the head, right? Is we always want to do something that we're really good at, right? Is if I'm crushing it at work or whatever, dude, I don't want to go home and go talk with Allie when I know I got problems and we haven't had sex in a month. Like that doesn't sound fun, It's like, I want to stay at work, And the same thing, guys get stuck in I don't want to go to work because work's hard, work is whatever. And I want to stay home because I'm crushing it at home, know? And so that's again where it's like you're looking back at yourself, you're looking back at that guy in the mirror and you're like, all right, boy, you know,
Yeah. What are you going to do?
what are you going to do? You know? And so, yeah, I mean, that's a constant battle. And every time you do it, you know, you get better and better and better at it.
Yeah.
But the easy thing is definitely to do and
What you're
stick to
good
what
at.
you're good at. Right. And everyone wants to do that.
Yeah. All the
Yeah.
affirmation and feel good comes
Right.
from what you're good at. It's true. I have, over the years, I've had to, like, I don't know if it's Maxwell, but I think that it is, who said, don't work on any strength or any weakness that's not keeping you from a strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you just waste time.
Right.
I'm not going to get really good at playing the piano if it's nowhere in my, or whatever.
Yeah.
And but over the years, I feel like I have had to confront that thing in me that either doesn't want to go work, or because I've had both seasons.
Yeah.
There's definitely seasons in my life, like when I worked for Firestorm fighting fires.
Yeah.
It was like, man, all I wanted to do was be at work.
Right.
Because I had young kids.
Yeah.
And a young marriage.
Yeah.
And being at home with young kids and a young marriage was tough, right?
Oh, yeah.
Kids are so demanding. And your marriage, there's conflict there. And I hate conflict. So at work, I'm the boss.
Mm-hmm.
At work, I'm powerful. At work, I get to cut trees and burn fire. And so it's so much easier, right? But then you get confronted with, well, the reality that if my wife doesn't respect me and my kids don't respect me, then it really doesn't matter who else respects me, right? Like, what else is there in this world besides your wife and kids?
Not much.
Everything else is second.
Mm-hmm.
And so having to it takes a lot of courage to face something that you know needs work, that you have to work on and not avoid it.
Definitely. I think especially nowadays, because there's 3 steps for everything nowadays, right? Like if I'm going through a problem, or if I have with anything emotionally, financially, spiritually, I can search on YouTube 3 steps to get out of this problem, And so instead of actually solving the problem, I'm finding the fastest way out of this problem.
Yeah.
And that just creates a lifestyle of avoiding problems.
It does.
Or it creates a lifestyle of, you're not actually dealing with the problem. You're trying to solve the problem now.
Yeah.
And for most of life, that's not actually how this works.
Yeah,
this game is not a sprint.
Yeah.
And I think now, especially in my generation, it feels like everyone wants it now. Everyone, we want the Porsche, we want the mansion, we want the helicopter.
Yeah.
But we don't want pain, we don't want hard work.
Yeah.
And I want it next week.
It's true.
And if I don't have it next week, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me if I'm not driving a Porsche GT3 RS that this guy on Instagram is posting.
Yeah.
And I'm just, working a blue collar job, whatever. And so I think it's like, okay, instead of trying to find the easy way out, why don't we find,
fix it the right way.
Yeah, let's just fix it the right way. Yeah.
Well, I think that would be easy if the right way was clear.
Yeah. Definitely.
So sometimes that's the hard part, right?
That is a hard part.
And you're finding that out with marriage, and
definitely
it's not so clear and cut and easy as it's like raising kids. I'm on my second round of raising kids.
Yeah.
And as you know, I thought coming into raising kids again would be like, I've already done it. I've kind of got the book on it, but it's been so different.
Yeah.
Edie's so different than you were.
Yeah.
And Liam's so different. And so there's no clear cut path that I'm like, dang, I just have to be really diligent every day and really diligent to show up. And I need God to help me. And I have to keep learning, and I got to keep getting advice. And And I'm the guy that like teaches how to do that stuff.
Right.
And I'm having to like learn again
Yeah.
and get humbled and all that stuff. And I think that life is so much more about our ability to persevere than it is about our um our ability to like solve a problem and then all the pain goes away. Like perseverance is so much more a part of the solution than like one answer.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's tough.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Definitely. Yeah.
That just feels like life. What do you feel like? Like you got married young. You've been married for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So you got married at 21.
Yep. 3.5.
What do you feel like's been the easiest thing? Like, ooh, this is what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's been the hardest thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh man. I mean, I think the easiest thing is, coming home to a home cooked meal and, like the house is tidy. The house is, nice and clean. It's a home.
Yeah.
Cause I could easily turn that into a bachelor pad in a minute.
You would definitely turn it into a bachelor pad.
That's probably the easiest thing is just coming home to, a nice clean house. I think the hardest thing is, oh boy.
Cleaning that house before you leave.
Dude.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm not good at that. I'm getting better at that. You could ask Allie. I actually am making an improvement. I am. I've actually am making an improvement.
Good job, son.
Man, I think for myself, the hardest thing is when I feel like when I feel like I keep making messes or we're disconnected is choosing to come back and connect.
Yeah.
And so, what that would look like practically is, especially when you both have stuff going on outside of marriage, is, if we're in disconnection because of something that I said, which could have very easily happened, or something that I did, which 95% of the problem is if I'm being successful at work, I just won't come home.
Yeah.
Like, I just won't. Like,
I'm going to stay late.
Yeah, I'm going to stay late, come home at 11.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you go to bed at 9 o'clock. So, so that's the hardest thing. The hardest thing is choosing connection when there is not a lot of connection, right? And Papa says, and this is a quote, that I have to tell myself all the time is if you do what you want to do when you don't want to do it, that's how you have a successful marriage.
Yeah.
Like if you do what you would do when you're in connection, but you do that when you're in disconnection.
Yeah.
Your marriage is going to be a lot easier when you choose that route than if you choose, disconnection or whatever, not showing up or
it's true.
I worked really hard and then, you're twisting it on, I'm providing for you. This is why I have to stay home late at work or whatever. But that's definitely, to answer your question, that's the hardest part about being married, at least that I am running into, is just choosing to connect in disconnection.
Yeah.
And especially for me, because growing up, I found a lot of connection in disconnection.
Well, maybe safety and disconnection.
Say that again?
Maybe safety and disconnection.
Yeah. Is my normal is I will actually create disconnection to have connection.
Oh, I see.
Like
Yeah.
in my past, I would very easily create a mess so that we could then clean it up and be all good.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm so used to.
Like, are you talking about the time when you pretended that you were blind?
Dude, I mean, there's hundreds of stories. There's hundreds of stories of
and me. I took you to the eye doctor.
There's hundreds of stories of me creating disconnection.
Yeah.
To want to be seen, to want to be heard, to want to be whatever, to create connection.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you have that frame of mind for that pattern for, 11 to, I really started trying to dig into this at 22, before you really have to think about, okay, am I actually like, what is actually my goal here? Like, am I creating a problem? Like, am I antagonizing you because I want to have makeup sex after this and
Yeah.
be all connected, or is this actually something that's real? And
Yeah.
so, for me, it's like, okay, instead of creating disconnection, instead of creating a problem to solve the problem, why don't I find connection in just connection?
Yeah.
Like,
Like expressing where I'm at.
right. Or why not I just be happy with connection? Like, if we're good, why not I just be happy with that? Like,
It's not all that simple though, huh?
it's not. It's not. Yeah, it is not.
Because part
Yeah.
of what happens to us is it's triggered by something, right?
Right.
So I get afraid or I feel a little bit of rejection.
Yep.
And then that rejection, that starts the cycle where I'm like, I go inward into my feelings and thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and emotions, and I start to stonewall and like isolate, and I build up this story about her and whatever, and then before you know, and then that makes me angry and feel powerless, and I don't communicate, and now I'm gonna act out, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick a fight, or because instead of going like, hey, I know you didn't mean this, but a few minutes ago my feelings got hurt,
Yeah.
and I love you. I just want you to hear that really hurt my, instead of doing that,
Dude.
because that takes a lot of courage. What we don't realize is like that takes a lot of courage to go like, hey, hold on a second ago, what you said, um, that really hurt me. It's scary.
It's so scary. And here's the thing about emotions is like emotions themselves have never killed anyone, right?
Yeah.
No one's had an emotion where they've died,
Yeah.
but making decisions based off that emotion has killed people.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
whether it's actually killed them or killed their marriage or
Yeah.
whatever is, when you're feeling an emotion or when you're feeling something and then you make a decision based off of that emotion,
Yeah.
that's where you could get yourself into trouble.
It's true.
Especially if that emotion is just a trigger or,
Yeah.
Whatever. If I'm just constantly making decisions based off of what I'm feeling and right now, that's going to put me
Yeah.
in a lot of tricky spots.
It's a bummer.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sucks when there's nothing worse when you're at work and your wife's pissed at you and you got to come home
Yeah.
and like face it. It's the worst feeling in the world.
Dude, it's the worst. Yeah. There's not much
It's
worse.
worse than that split second that you realize you're going over the handlebars on the motorcycle.
Yeah. It's like, it's bad, dude. And then you add on like a hard day at work or like your guys are just, do something stupid and you're just
fall a tree on the house.
getting hit from both, well, not fall a tree on the house, but
Oh.
something like that.
Yeah.
You're just getting hit from both sides. That's a problem too. Not successful at work and you're not successful in marriage.
Gosh,
dude,
that's a bummer day.
that's a bad deal.
It
Yeah,
is.
that's a bad.
Yeah,
You're looking at that guy in the mirror a little bit different.
You want to avoid that, huh?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. Let's talk a little bit about BGR.
Yeah.
Because Bethel Global Response, well, maybe you can explain Bethel Global Response and what you guys do. And
Yeah.
I'll ask some questions about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bethel Global Response is basically we're a disaster response team, and kind of our mission is we're the hands and feet of Jesus Christ in the midst of a disaster.
It's great.
And so, kind of my life's mission, one of the many things that I wanted to do when I was a kid was, and you can attest to this, would be going and helping people and helping kids in Kenya. I used to always say, oh, I want to go help those kids.
Yeah.
And so really now, my calling, my dream and my vision is to go where no one else is going. And, what that's looked like now is, right now we're on the front lines of Ukraine.
Mhm.
And so, our previous director has, brought us there, but now we're kind of carrying that on. And so, what that looks like is on the front lines of Ukraine is we're driving to the front and we're loading people up in the vans, or, we're going and preaching in these bomb shelters. We're doing medical aid. We're being the practical, and the big thing is practically is, my big thing is, there's a role for everyone, right? There's a role for the people who are praying back at home. They have a role. There's a role for the pastors, but then there's also a role for actually practically going out and doing the work,
Yeah.
right? And so that's kind of what our team is doing. Is we're on the front lines of Ukraine. We have a project in Tijuana where we're housing about 1,800 migrants. We're feeding them 3 meals a day. I'm actually bringing 40 doctors in
And sneaking them
February,
across the border.
sneaking them across the border. Yeah, right. Anyways,
No.
I'm not getting into it on this.
Shut up. And then were you guys in Hawaii too? Did you do something in
Yeah,
Hawaii?
so we're and all of this is with partners. And so nothing we do is obviously by ourselves. It's all with partners and everything like that. But we're housing about 350 to 400 people in Hawaii because of the Lahaina fire.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what
It's
we're doing.
amazing.
That's the best.
Yeah. Ukraine's wild.
Super wild.
Because so like you guys are literally on the front lines with, like, I remember the last time you went there, you sent me a bunch of videos and you personally could see the front line of the Russian.
Yeah.
Like you could see the Russians.
Yeah. We're right there
fighting while you were like trying to rescue people out of homes and like share what is that like for you?
Yeah. I mean, that's a real don't make decisions based off your emotions. Cause and in that sense, it's like, you have to really know you have to really know that why you're there. Right. Because if you don't have the understanding of, why you're there, then none of it makes sense. Like it doesn't actually logically make sense to send a 24-year-old American boy to the front lines of Ukraine, very close to the front lines to be evacuating these people. Right. And so
I feel that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. But in those moments, it's crazy, but I just feel so much peace. Like I've never felt more peace than when we're preaching or when I'm preaching to 30, 40 people about the love of God. And while we're preaching, the buildings are getting shelled. Like rockets are coming in like meters away. And, almost everyone goes, I thought you guys forgot about us. Like, I thought we were forgotten. Like, I thought that no one was coming to help us or no one, and it was like, yeah, that is true. Like the world has forgotten about you.
Yeah.
But God hasn't.
Yeah.
And so to be able to go to those places, that no one else is going to and bring the gospel and to bring the love of Jesus to those people is, I mean, there's no better feeling. It's crazy. And
it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
when do you go back?
I go back in a week.
In a week.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel good. There's always like you kind of like
gear yourself up mentally.
Like, yeah, you get ready. A lot of praying. And I mean, you need to know why you're there, right? And every trip is, you obviously I'm married, right? So Allie needs to feel good with me going just as much as I need to feel good with me going.
Yeah.
And, if she doesn't feel good with me going, I'm not going.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a lot of work beforehand, just in preparation and making sure that like mentally I'm good, spiritually I'm good. Because there's no worse feeling than when you don't want to be there, but you're stuck. You're stuck, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck in Ukraine.
No, that's a bad deal.
Yeah, that is a bad deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I leave in a week, and it takes about 90 hours to get there. The travel is worse than being there.
That's probably true.
Dude, there's nothing where the biggest thing that I hate is travel.
Is the travel.
Is hopping on that plane, sitting there forever.
Yeah.
So just to get to the front lines is about 90 hours of travel. We're going to be there for about 6 days and then another 90 hours back.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
Yeah.
Well, you've always loved danger and taking risks and chasing the thrill.
Mm-hmm.
And then your heart to help people and be compassionate. Like that's probably what you got from me is the
Mm-hmm.
like the heart to help, the
Definitely.
compassion.
Yeah.
You didn't get that from Papa.
Definitely
He
not.
doesn't have a heart to help.
Nah.
Um,
Cold-blooded killer that guy is.
but your heart to help is huge. And so being able to do that, watching you do that's so fun for me. Like
Mm.
I'm so incredibly proud of you knowing that, you know, like you're putting your money where your mouth where your money is, you know, and or vice versa. And doing, you know, you're doing something that I wouldn't do. You know, I wouldn't go to the front lines of Ukraine. Like I don't, I don't have, I don't know that I have that same courage as you do. And I love that.
Mm.
Like I just love that you're doing something that is beyond me, you know?
Mm.
So it's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you in that. Um, yeah, I probably the last area that I wanted to talk about is your entrepreneurial spirit because it's pretty cool. Like a lot of people, including me in this world, would just do one job, right? Like I would just do BGR if I was
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm.
But you started this tree business and have just done incredible. Like you've grown the business amazing. And you guys do such good work
Mm-hmm.
and you have a really cool team of guys. Like, what's it like having your own company?
Yeah, it's the best. It definitely wasn't easy from the start.
Uh-huh.
You know, we lived in a, you know, when we started, we lived in a 400 square foot apartment. There was no door separating any part of the house.
Oh,
And we had, you know, 6, 7 chainsaws in the bathroom. So it was definitely like
yeah.
humbling beginnings, you know? And so, you know, that didn't last long because my wife wasn't going to be married with me if she had to smell two-stroke in the while she was taking a shower. But I mean, running a business, there's no better thing. There's no better feeling than doing that, especially when it's going successful. But more than that, having a group of guys that would do anything for you is and you would do anything for them, that's like my biggest thing
Mm.
is actually having a team of guys who you know, it doesn't matter what we're doing, you know, we could be power washing or painting or whatever, but actually having a group of guys where we're all going after hard work. We're all going after excellence, not just at work, but even in our personal life, you know,
Mm.
is we don't just go and cut people's trees or, prune whatever. But I think the biggest thing that we do is we take care of each other and, yeah, just watch out for each other's backs. And so, you know, I couldn't do the tree service business without these guys. And
Mhm.
I think our biggest thing is, you know, it almost is like it's ministry in its own because, you know, when we started the tree service, it was like, okay, I want a group of guys that aren't Christians at all to be able to come into our environment. And because of the way that we're living life, because of the way
Mhm.
that we're doing life, um, you know, they want to be just like us, you
Mhm.
know, instead of having to convince them, they can just come in our environment and be attracted to that. Like that's the kind of environment that I want to set up, that I want to be known for. And so these guys are doing just that
That's awesome.
and they're crushing it. Yeah.
What do you feel like's a secret to your success
Um,
as a boss?
yeah, I think a secret to success is, you know, when they fail, I take ownership.
Mm.
And when they succeed, they succeed.
Mhm.
And so,
That's great.
yeah, I think what that looks like is, I mean, just last month we had probably $10,000, $15,000 just in equipment breaking. And that's stuff that's like could have easily been prevented.
Yeah.
And, you know, when that happens, instead of the typical getting, you know, pissed off or frustrated, I'm is like, hey, let's figure out a plan so we don't do that. You know,
Yeah.
creating a culture that isn't based off of fear, but is
Mhm.
based off of learning and connection, I
Yeah.
think is what's kept the guys wanting to work so hard.
That's cool.
Because you can ask any of those guys, you know, you can just come out to the job site. We won't even be saying a word to each other but they're working so hard,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's just because they know, what they're going to get. They're not going to get yelled at when something breaks, or, they're going to get treated with respect and get taken care of really well. But yeah, that's, I think.
What's the hardest thing for you?
Hardest thing is not getting pissed off when they break something.
Yeah. Is being who you want to be.
Yeah. Is being who you would want to be when it's,
Yeah.
you're presented with something that's really tough. We, we didn't rig something right, and a little log fell straight through someone's roof. And it was like, that could have easily been prevented, And so it was like, in that moment of wanting to yell, wanting to scream, it was like, hey, let's stop and figure out why we did that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the hardest thing. And the hardest thing is, there's a lot of risk in trees. It's the most dangerous job in the world. Like, it is the most dangerous job in the world. Right. So it's figuring out, how do you get the job done while being safe?
Mm-hmm.
And having a bunch of guys that are green come into doing tree work and do it safe, but also do it with excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been just a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. Well, bud, I'm super proud of you.
Thanks.
Yeah. And it's so cool just to sit down and talk with you and see the trajectory that your life is headed on. Like, there's so many dads that listen to this podcast. And I remember when you were young and I was going through the divorce and just watching you kids go through the pain of that. My greatest fear was that it was going to affect you guys so much that it was going to derail your life, or, because so much of that, it was unavoidable.
Right.
Like, I can only control me. I can't control everybody, and can't control your decisions or whatever. And I can't take away your pain. I can only focus on mine and connect with you if you wanted to. And so as a dad, like, you spend so much time worrying and praying, and and you'll know soon, because you'll have kids,
right?
And doing whatever you can to like give your kids the best life. And it's just so fun to watch how the past, like how you're growing up, although it wasn't perfect, like built resiliency in you.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see you today go after your dreams and your passions, to watch you married and fail and succeed and grow is like so incredible.
Thanks, Dad.
Like, you're so far beyond where I ever was at your age, and so many areas of your life. And well, we're both further along than Papa is even right now. So
definitely.
I'm kidding.
We're kicking his cuss word.
Yeah. His butt. So it's really cool. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, and let me share.
You're welcome. BraveCo men, if you have a son, let this be a testimony to you of just being steadfast and leading by example in your family, and also the power of prayer, right? Like, so many days I just spent time praying over Lige and the kids, and and just knowing like someday your kids are going to grow up, right? And they're going to take on the virtues and the values that you embraced as a man. So it's just so important. That's why we show up every single day to the best of your ability. Gosh, I made so many mistakes growing up, and I still make a bunch of mistakes, but God is so good and so faithful to cover those. And so, it's just what I love. So thanks so much for watching this week's podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend, like and subscribe. That helps as well. And leave a comment for us. Otherwise, have an incredible week. We will see you next week on the BraveCo podcast. Hey, BraveCo men. Hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, If you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.